Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 14th and tonight's movie is Afflicted. Afflicted is also one of the more obscure movies I'm going to be watching this month. It is a Canadian found footage movie, and when I read the description about it, they just said that two friends are traveling around the world and one of them gets a strange disease, and the poster showed some guy with this weird thing on the back of his head. I didn't know what it's supposed to be looking at. I assumed it was a disease. Nope, as it turns out, it's a vampire movie. Vampire media in general just isn't really my thing because if it's not done in a certain way, it's just really, really depressing. I usually like it when they either A, fully demonize them, like turn them into full on villains and have it be humans versus vampires. Some examples of that are Salem's Lot by Stephen King, the original Dracula, and Shiki, the anime. Or you could go on the other end of the spectrum and fully humanize them. Make them, like, a lot less evil, a lot more comedic, a lot more normal. I know there are plenty of examples of that, but for some reason the only one I can think of right now is Hikari from Interviews with Monster Girls. But usually I like those two types of vampire stuff. This movie isn't really either. I'm going to be giving this one a 7 out of 10. There are a lot of really good ideas in it, but overall it wasn't great. I would say it's good/okay. This movie starts out as these two friends are like post-college and they make a decision to do a year-long trip around the entire world. And one of them is like a filmmaker slash, I'm pretty sure he's like a YouTube personality. And I have to say, the way that the first part of the movie was shot and edited was spot on. It looks just like a YouTube video, maybe someone like BuzzFeed or like a bunch of vloggers. It has that like obnoxious sort of editing style. If you had just shown me that without any other context, I would not think this was the beginning of a found footage horror movie. They got that perfectly, like thumbs up. You guys nailed it with that. But within the first few days, the two friends, Derek and Cliff, are going to Paris, and Derek has a hookup with some woman that they come across, and she, like, attacks him. They find him in his hotel room. He's all, like, bloody and stuff, but apparently he's fine. But as the days go by, he starts experiencing strange symptoms. He gets sunburned immediately. He doesn't really eat food that much. And eventually it becomes clear that he got turned into a vampire. Now, before they realize that it's vampirism, they have fun with a lot of the weird stuff, like he has super strength and like super speed and stuff, and they were like playing around with it, and a lot of the scenes, I know this came afterwards, but I saw it first, it reminded me a lot of Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. So I feel like that movie almost took inspiration from this one. It's also a lot like how I assume Chronicle was. I haven't seen Chronicle, but from what I've read, it's basically like a found footage version of Akira, and I can definitely get that impression from this too. And for the most part, the way that they edit these, like, superhuman things is done really well. It's not, like, overly fake looking. It looks good. But then, of course, you got the thing that pretty much every single vampire thing has to do, is it has to lay out the rules. There is not an official list of vampire rules. Every single news story with vampires in it needs to establish what the rules are. So yeah, there is a lot of that in this movie. Sort of exposition. It's not the most natural thing. But that sort of, like, comes with the territory when it comes to making a vampire story. You need to lay out the rules, like how people get turned into vampires, what kills them, what hurts them, stuff like that. The movie is very segmented. There clearly are two parts of the movie. And I can't really talk about the second part without going into spoilers, but I think that the second part came in too early and they could have done more with what they had at the first part. Something I wanted them to do more of was, like, the two friends, like, trying to keep the monster inside at bay. Like, they were trying everything. They were trying to steal blood from, like, a blood bank. They even, like, hijacked an ambulance at one point. Like, I think that that could have been a little bit more interesting and they could have explored that a little bit more. Another thing is that there are no fangs at any point in this movie. There is no fang reveal. Why is there no fang reveal? It's a vampire movie. There should be a fang reveal, but there's not one. I mean, for all we know, the vampires in this movie don't even have fangs. They just, like, scrape and lick or something. Okay, before we go into the spoilers, I want to say that I didn't love this movie, but I think a lot of it was that vampires just aren't my thing in general. If you like vampires, you'll probably like this just fine. Actually, I think it's the only vampire found footage movie I can think of, or at least the one that I've seen. Oh yeah, there was that one that was like a mockumentary about 4 vampires. That was, what's it called? Give me a second. It's called What We Do in the Shadows. I'm not going to be seeing it this 31 Horror Nights because it is a horror comedy, but I've heard great things about it. So yeah, but it did come out after this one. This might actually be the first vampire found footage movie. Well, there are things in it that I feel like could have been executed better. It still does have good drama, good horror, and really good acting. The two leads are also the two directors and the writers, so they definitely put their all into this movie, and it does show. Alright, now let's go into the spoiler section of the review. About halfway through this movie, Derek, the one that got infected with the vampire, actually bites and kills Cliff, the other one. So pretty much the rest of this movie is just Derek on his own trying to find the woman that turned him into a vampire and get a cure. And he acts like there has to be a cure, and no, she doesn't have to have a cure. I don't know why exactly he would think that. Maybe it's panicked wishful thinking. So it's him trying to track her down, and he discovers that apparently, I mentioned earlier that one of the things they need to establish in vampire movies is what is the difference between someone who gets killed by the vampire and somebody who gets turned into a vampire. And in this one, they act like it's just some random thing, like most people will die, but a few of them, Derek included, will become vampires when they get bitten. They also established that Derek can't kill himself. He did shoot himself with a shotgun, but it heals up. The image on the first poster in this video is the back of his head, the scarring that resulted from it. They never clarify what would happen if a vampire just stayed out in the sun in this one. They do establish that it does really hurt to be out in the sun. Their skin, blisters and burns and, falls off. But what happens if they stay out there? Do they die? Do they just stay in pain forever? I don't know. Eventually, he does find the woman who turned him into a vampire, and they have a little fight, and she tells him that there is no cure. And one of the things that she says is that you need to feed every 4 or 5 days, and then he says that he had only been doing every 10 days. But every time he does feed in the movie at that point, he turns into this feral monster and just seems to disappear for a little bit and just kills indiscriminately. And she says that in order to prevent that from happening, you need to feed more often. And she says that she makes herself feel a little bit better about it by killing people that she thinks are bad or thinks that were dying anyway. That's why she bit him. He had a brain aneurysm, and he didn't have too much time left in the first place. So yeah, when you get right down to it, this movie has a really depressing ending. Derek can't leave. He is cursed to forever wander this planet as an undead abomination. This is part of the reason why I called Vampires really depressing earlier. This movie does not have a satisfying ending. That's one of the biggest things it has against it. I mean, it does have a really good build up to that, and it does have some really good moments, but it doesn't stick the landing as well as it wanted to. There was also something the credits happen, and right at the beginning of the credits, we see another scene of somebody else completely, and they get attacked by a vampire, and at the very end, it's revealed that the person who's attacking them is Cliff, the other friend, the one that Derek bit halfway through the movie. Apparently, he's a vampire now, too. That just kind of makes me wonder if being able to get turned into a vampire is such a rare thing in the first place, what are the odds that two people who turn out to be friends and are traveling around the world together both have that gene or something or whatever? So, I guess the ending is now they're both cursed forever. Again, not exactly a satisfying ending. Overall, Afflicted is not as good as it could have been, but it still turned out okay. It's not my thing, but for what it was, I feel like it worked well enough. I'll see you guys tomorrow.